Hi, this is again the series of videos for ACT prep. It's the coronavirus outbreak. About to put the magic mirror doohickey on and look at problems 21 through 30. #21, again, I know this is far away from the base, so they're the hardest to see. Laura plans to paint the 8-foot high rectangular rooms. 8-foot high rectangular walls of her room, and before she buys paint, she needs to know the area of the wall surface to be painted. So notice there's really only one thing in there that you actually need. The walls are 8 foot tall, and they're just trying to waste some time with the reading. 2 walls are 10 feet wide. The other 2 walls are 15 feet wide. So I'm actually just going to doodle a couple rectangles. So this is going to be my 10 by 8 wall. And then the other wall is even a little longer than that. It's 8 by 15. You just know that from reading those first 2 sentences carefully. The combined area of the one window and the one door in her room is 60 square feet. So window plus door is 60 square feet. What is the area in square feet of the wall surface Laura plans to paint? 8 times 10 is 80. This is already 80. It's just 5 extra right here. 8 times 5 is 40, so that's a total of 120. So these 2 walls together would be 200, but there's 2 copies of each of those walls. It takes 4 walls to make a room. So it's 200, 400. So the walls are a total of 400 square feet. But don't forget to subtract off the window and the door that you're not going to paint. So I'm looking for 340, which is choice B. 22, you'll be able to see a lot better. 22, the length of a rectangle. I'm a little surprised there's 2 rectangle questions in a row, but here we go. Length of a rectangle is 5 inches longer than its width. So anytime I start reading about a rectangle, I'm going to stop and just doodle a rectangle. I always put length horizontal and width vertical, but that's just a preference. The length is 5 inches longer than the width, so length is 5 plus W. The perimeter is 40 inches. What is the width? So we want this. We know that the perimeter is 40. We can copy the 5 plus W to this side and the W plus this side, and we know that perimeter we need to add all of these up. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4 copies of W. 5 plus 5 is 10. So the perimeter is 4W plus 10, but we notice that that equals to 40. Subtract the 10 and get 30. Divide by 4 and get 7.5. So the width should be 7.5, which is choice F. #23. 8% of 60 is 1/5 of what number? Definitely some reading comprehension on this question, like almost always, even when it's hardly any words in the problem, they're hoping to lose you in that. This is already kind of a common math format in like pre-algebra, and then they add in this sort of extra layer. I teach students to do this as part of whole is equal to the percentage out of 100. That's just kind of the definition of what a percentage is. And so don't worry about this. We're going to do this problem in 2 steps. We're just going to kind of think of all of that hot mess as X, and then actually once we figure out X, this what number that we're looking for is going to be y. So we'll find x and then use x to get y. So 8% of 60, of is a signal word. That's why I included the of here. So the 60 is a denominator. The part we don't know, we're going to use it, if we already said to call it x, is 8 out of 100. And then from there you could cross multiply and solve, or you might just do like 8%, 8 out of 100 is 0.08, and you end up multiplying that by 60, just whatever makes sense to you to try to get finished. Let's see if there's a trick. Maybe if we cut that in half, 4 out of 50, 2 out of 25, multiply over. So it's not actually one that's going to work out super nice. Let me look at the answer choices real fast. It must end up being nice at the end though. So I guess I actually am going to grab a calculator. On the real test I would have done that already. So I think I'll just end up doing the 0.08 times 60, 4.8. So x is 4.8. So now I'm going to take this chunk of the wording, and that's the 8% of 60 is the 4.8. I'm going to change this problem to 4.8 is 1/5 of what number, and basically play that same game. The of is a signal word, so if I don't know the denominator, I've already said I'm going to call it y. The 1/5 is like the percentage. 4.8 is the part. So y is going to equal 4.8 times 5. 4 times 5 is 20. And 8 times 5 is 40, but it's a 0.8, so it's going to be plus 4. So I'm looking for 24. Hopefully that's a choice. And it is, it's C. I will also kind of comment that, like, look how different in scale these choices are. That's kind of rare on the ACT. You have this really tiny number, these two moderately sized numbers, one bigger number, and one really, really big number. And so they are definitely counting on the wording of this problem to be what gets you. Hopefully I didn't get got. 24. Armin is trying to decide whether to buy a season pass to his college basketball team's 20 home games this season. This already sounds like a break-even problem, like I think I talked about on the first video for one of them. The cost of an individual ticket is $14. The pass for the season is $175. The season pass will admit Armin to any home basketball game at no additional cost. Notice they throw in a sentence there that they're, in their minds, they're saying it's to make it fair that if you don't understand what a season pass is, but really most people do, so it's just an extra sentence to waste a little bit of your time. What is the minimum number of home basketball games Armin must attend this season in order for the cost of the season pass to be less than the total cost of buying an individual ticket for each game he attends? So really when we want to know 14 per ticket times some number of tickets, we want to know when does that equal 175, and so we would divide off 14. And 175 divided by 14, it's probably going to have a decimal, 12.5. So really part of what they're trying to do with this question is get you with 12 and 13 are probably both offered. They are, so it's one of those two. And so the question is when does he actually start saving money? At 12 games, he would actually not quite be there. He would have almost broke even. 14 times 12, it's 168. So if you've done this problem by guessing and checking and you'd guess 12, you would say, oh, 168 is just a little less than 175. So it's got to be that it's 13. But with the 12 and a half, you got to think about what you're trying to do. And you're trying to save money. So if he's comparing to 175, it's actually that it's 13 tickets is going to be more than 175. And 13 was choice J. 25. Just going to turn it and work it right here. No words, just a little bit of math. And if you've paid some amount of attention in math, or maybe even science especially, you immediately notice that this is a problem that's in scientific notation. So first and foremost, I want to point out that 48 divided by 16, they both have one decimal point, so we can ignore it. 48 divided by 16 is 3. So this is 3.0. And that's why so many of the choices start with 3.0. I'm liking one of these choices, A, B, or C, that start with 3.0, not 3.2. And then you might remember that the shortcut here is to subtract, but if you subtract these, it would be -7 minus -11. Minus negative becomes positive. So the shortcut here is to subtract these. You end up adding the 11 because it was minus a negative. Or another way to think of it is that this actually moves to the numerator and becomes 10 to the positive 11 and gets mostly canceled out by this -7. And so you end up with times 10 to the 4th, which is A. Every once in a great while, you'll see one of these where this ends up having two numbers before the decimal point, and then you have to adjust this power by one in one direction or the other, or it's a decimal point and then the first number. And so just watch out if you've got choices that the power are almost the same, and then you look at the multiplier and you check and make sure it's actually written in scientific notation like it's supposed to be. 26, a circle in the standard XY coordinate plane, there's that phrase again, has center -1, 2 and passes through point A, which is at 2, 6. So I would go ahead and I would make a doodle. X, Y, center is -1, positive 2. C, passes through 2, 6. So it's a circle. I'm going to do my best to doodle a circle. Roughly looks something like that. That's not terrible. Gives me a good working visualization of what this circle looks like. A to B is a diameter of the circle. Well, that means that it would, since it's a diameter, it would have to go through C since it's the center. So B is like that. What are the coordinates of B? So since AB is a diameter and you already knew the center C, you know that it's here. It's a negative, almost certainly. And so when I look at the answer choices, I do see that 3 of them are negative. I also think that it should have, if you ignore the signs, a decent sized X coordinate, but a kind of small Y coordinate. So I'm liking actually about any of those. -6, -2, -5, -1, -4, -2. I think I'm fine with any of them. So I guess I'm going to have to actually look at the numbers. This was -1, positive 2. This was 2, 6. You might get scared and think that you have to do something pretty complicated here. But honestly, I'm going to think of it as a change in X, change in Y type situation. Because I know the center has to be in the middle. And -1 to 2 is a difference of 3. So 3 back would be -4. If you start at -1 and go 3 back, you'd be at -4. If you start at -1 and go 3 forward, you'd be at positive 2. And only choice H starts with -4. What if you looked at the X coordinates, or sorry, the Y coordinates instead at first? You would say, well, 2 to 6 is a change in Y of 4. So if you start at positive 2 and go down 4, that would get you to -2. So it does make sense for the Y coordinate as well. 27. Which of the following expressions is a factor of x cubed minus 64? Well, if you are really good at factoring, you'll know that this is a perfect cube pattern. 4 cubed is 64. In which case you know that it's going to start with x minus 4 and then some other business. If you are really, really good at factoring, you know that other business is x squared plus 4x plus 16. If you will multiply that out carefully, I promise you, you'll get x cubed minus 64. But honestly, the cube pattern doesn't occur on the ACT often enough that I would tell kids to definitely have it memorized. There's so many other things that are more likely to show up. But if you got everything else under control, why not? Notice that we're also on problem 27, so we're starting to get to things that maybe you're getting a little more obscure. You're not necessarily going to immediately, if there is an easy way, know the easy way. So I got to show you a trick that will work for this problem. And it'll let you kind of sort of guess and check. Let's say you just chose choice A, x minus 4, and you wanted a fast way, like you've worked everything else on the test you know how to do, and you started this problem and you've come back to it because you were like hoping you would remember a factoring pattern and it just hasn't come to you. Something you could try that works for this problem and kind of sort of works in general is if you think about what would make this 0, x equals 4 would make that 0. And then if you go back to the original x cubed minus 64 and you try 4 for x, you'll get 64 minus 64 equals 0. So if you think this might be the factor and you think about what number makes it equal 0, in this case 4, and you try that in the original problem and it makes that 0 as well, you are correctly remembered the factor. It's just a little trick that might be faster than trying to remember how to factor it. 28, the average of a list of 4 numbers is 90. So when I see a problem like this, I always just immediately draw 4 slots, and then I kind of make myself a note that it's, I don't know what it adds up to yet, but when I divide it by 4, because it was an average, it has to equal 90. So if I multiply the 4 over, I know that this has to add up to 360. A new list of 4 numbers has the same first 3 numbers, but the 4th number in the original list was 80. So this was an 80, and the 4th number in the new list is 96. What is the average of the new list of numbers? So maybe you don't even need the 360. Or you can start with the 360, you can subtract off the 80 and then add 96. Or you can take the 360 and just add 16 because 96 is more than 80. Or maybe you don't even think of the 360. You could just say that, well, it was averaging to a 90 before. It went up 16, but for an average, you would split that across 4 different numbers, and 16 divided by 4 is 4. So the average has gone up 4. I'm liking 94, which is choice H. There's just a lot of different ways you might reason your way through that one. Again, the test is reading and reasoning. 29. The number A is located at negative 2.5 on the number line below. Which of the following number lines shows the location of A squared? Which number line is it? First off, if A is negative 2.5, then A squared would be negative 2.5 squared, parentheses matter. It's going to be positive something. And 2 times 2 is 4. And 3 times 3 is 9, so it should be between 4 and 9. So I'm looking for a number line graph where the dot is between 4 and 9. And that should get rid of a few. It gets rid of A. It gets rid of B. It gets rid of C. It gets rid of those 3. It leaves D and E. 2.5 times 2 would be 5, and I needed 2.5 times 2.5, so it should be a little more than that. If you check it on the calculator, it ends up being 6.25, so it's got to be E. Again, part of that problem is they're just hoping to scare you off. All right, last one for this video. Maria ordered pizza. She only ate 2/9 of it and gave the remaining pizza to her 3 brothers. What fraction of the whole pizza will each of Maria's brothers receive if they share the remaining pizza equally? So they are splitting 7/9 of a pizza because she ate 2/9. So the whole, take away the 2/9, leave 7/9. They're dividing that by 3 because they're sharing it among 3 people. Or you need to multiply it by 1/3, and if you multiply straight across, that would be 7 out of 27. And 7/27 is choice K. Let me fix my big fat head. All right, well, thanks again, you all. This was video 3. Plan to do one for each of the math chunks of 10 questions. So that's halfway through the math. And I'm primarily a math teacher, but I was going to do one portion of the English test, reading test, and science test, just kind of as a help. I do a lot of ACT prep, so I do know some things that are helpful there as well. All right, well, thank you, and I guess you'll see me again later, maybe.